Dude, like, did you see that with like fan? I loved it.
Yeah.
The Twitter feed for Blizz Esports, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So I guess it's one of the cool things that happened in MSB is that we saw a lot of it ended up being NA played NA in that losers bracket.
Mhm.
There was a Korea versus Korea match in that losers bracket. And then the big show, the big finale, of course, was EU versus EU.
Yeah.
Did anyone think it was going to turn out that way?
I didn't expect that. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I didn't expect that either. I thought maybe it could have been a Korea versus Korea in the grand finals. Wasn't really expecting the all EU 1-2, but I think my prediction was MVP Black and Dig, but at least I got one of them right. One of the teams that I predicted actually made it to the grand finals. I think some people were actually predicting a sweep for Fnatic, which was, in my opinion, insane, given the track record against Dignitas. Saying that they were gonna take out Dignitas in a clean sweep was a bit ambitious.
Mm-hmm. Well, I for one welcome our new EU overlords. Right? You know, we don't have to be against the heel of Korea anymore. Now we can say, well, you guys might have Korean players whenever, but we got Dig in Fnatic right over here in the West. So now our Western clash means a little bit more, right? You know, because then it's what would be considered like the better teams in the world, but
the reigning world champion.
Exactly, yeah. Yep. Which that should at least make us, like, if we take games off European teams where we have a good showing there, that should mean a lot more, right?
I think so. It also, I think, it helps us improve fish for NA. It helps improve our region because EU, I think, is going to get more resources and they're going to take it even more seriously, which sounds crazy that you could take it more seriously. But
did we lose the stream?
I think we did.
You just have to restart. It had a hiccup, but the delay wasn't taken off, so there's a 2-minute delay.
Edit that part out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there's a stream delay, so just refresh.
All right, we're good. Okay. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're back.
It just did a little, I don't know. The whole thing has been weird with the stream key and everything. I think Twitch is being a little odd, but we're good to go.
Angry.
Yeah, Twitch is angry at us.
Honestly, I kind of want to go a little bit more into like why I think Korea didn't look as strong in this tournament as compared to other tournaments and then how they've done previously.
Before we do that really quick though,
okay.
I want to take something from the chat. Everyone's talking about Fan on the desk.
Oh yeah.
On the caster desks. I liked Fan on the caster desk. First of all, he had the best tie of any caster, which you can take for what it is. But his tie, they all need to ask. Yeah, Caldor needs to dress them all, but Fan's tie was good.
Definitely.
I liked his commentary. I really putting the pros on the desk because I think that it adds like that little bit of spicy commentary that goes into the direction, like you're saying, with the production that they want to do.
So that's right. So for teams like Roll20 and Tempo Storm and whoever up and coming, you know, make sure that you guys knock out GFE so that we can get Fan back on the desk. You know, everybody wants it, so you're gonna have to show up there. So.
But you're saying Korea. I do want to talk about Korea.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people want to bring up stuff like roster changes for them sort of caused an issue that, you know, you had like E-Star as well. People were saying that, you know, maybe they didn't show up or look as strong here because of the roster changes that had gone through. And we can kind of touch up on like what the deal is with Blizzard on that kind of end. But I think more specifically, I think the truth is that we saw, in my opinion, for the first time in terms of like the MOBA scene, where a company is, because, you know, Blizzard's the one that does all the balancing, right? They do all the balancing, and they have to get a lot of feedback from tons of their players in terms of how they make changes. So a lot of times what you end up seeing in other games is that you always see balancing based on the region that you're from. Where you hire the most, you know, QA people sometimes affects your balancing, which can cause it to where like metas for North America or Europe can always get toned down going into a tournament, which could be a problem. But I think this is actually the first time we've seen it where it was the other way, where we had all these changes from picks like, Mouth got slightly toned down going into this. Like you had ETC that got toned down going into this, and then you had all of these meta changes that really swapped away from their typical play style, which is just these early game power picks, one or two scaling picks like your hyper carry, and then flex picks. And the biggest change overall, the Zarya Tassadar change that was just almost exclusively targeted for Korea, because even though everyone was upset about it in NA and EU and we don't like these picks and they're so annoying, the truth is that nobody ran those two picks the same way that Korea ran them. Korea ran them with very good efficiency, very strong early game, and very good snowballing. So when those changes went through, they kind of had to adapt to this new meta as everyone else did, but they were less used to it, right? The new meta being, almost exclusively your first 5 picks, your first 2 bans, and then your first 5 picks are almost always Genji, Anubarak, Uther, Abathur, Greymane, Dehaka, and then when Uther's gone, Mouth, stuff like that, right? Those are picks that, just on statistics and just on how Korea plays, they didn't play. Genji didn't have a lot of success. As much as people thought he was annoying and thought he was a pretty good character, he didn't have a lot of success in Korea. We weren't able to see the Falstad and Zeratul because of the existence of these other characters. We weren't able to really see the Vala without an Ariel or Uther because of these characters. No Sergeant Hammer. You couldn't do Nazebo. You couldn't, easily take your Murdens, your ETCs. And then later on, we saw other teams actually start making use of Varian. But the KR teams didn't really do that. So much of their meta changed, right? A lot of that emphasis on the early game kind of got put towards the mid game, and a lot of the characters that the EU teams focused on are very mid game heavy kind of play style there. So I just don't think they were able to adapt fast enough, right? I mean, we saw in the KR playoffs where Anubarak was getting banned, wasn't getting picked, was getting banned because people kind of had an idea of what he could do with the the cocoon picks and his ability to kind of just force engages on an enemy team, but I don't think they really had an idea of when there's more than just a Anubarak to ban out, and they definitely struggled with their drafting on that end.
Would you say that it seemed like they had an issue studying other teams, or maybe weren't incredibly worried? You could see that with the Roll20 game. I mean, not banning Diablo Medivh on a map that we've seen Roll20 just absolutely, excuse the pun, but roll over people. There's no, that's just bad.
Yeah.
And then you see them immediately next game banning Diablo first ban, or second ban phase. They banned it away. So I don't know if that was just lack of preparation, or maybe they thought they could deal with it. But very coordinated Diablo being portaled into your backline is extremely hard to deal with, because that almost eliminates the factor of him having to be all in. Then it kind of fills the holes of or the gaps rather that Diablo has weaknesses in. He has no disengage, he only has engage. So if you're being portaled around the map, that makes Diablo arguably one of the strongest tanks when he's paired with Medivh.
Yeah, they found an answer for it right later on when they faced Roll20 again, but that was something like Arthas in the situation they had it was characteristic, or just that's not a typical KR move, getting the Mouth and the Arthas together to kind of just add on roots for anybody who tries to go into the portals and kind of shut down any potential for them having a hard engage was not the same thing. And I think as people are kind of bringing up in chat, I believe KR actually walked into this and said, we're Korea.
We're number one.
We're gonna bring our meta. You're gonna learn our meta. You know what I mean? You guys are all gonna learn our meta because we're just so good, and we're gonna come in. We're gonna do a couple scrims here and there, against some of these other teams, and we're gonna show up and actually start beating them. But I think after groups, or even just halfway through groups, you started noticing that they're like, oh my god, this isn't working. Okay, what were they running in scrims? Okay, Arthas, should we pick Arthas? Abba, is Abba good? No. Okay, Anubarak, Uther. Okay, those are good picks. We gotta start incorporating those more. And then they started having to learn, the extended knowledge of having those, right? What do you ban? What does it pair well with? How do you secure that for yourself later on in the draft? That kind of stuff they had to now catch up on. And then I feel like they didn't, and then already, just as the side of just the roster things, if you start having struggles in your scrims going into these kind of tournaments, and that you have your kind of roster changes coming in, that you're not going to be too happy, right? You're going to be pretty upset. You know, you're
Which
going to be like,
across the board, that was the case, right? So that rule set where roster locks had to be in by June 10th, but there's teams that came to midseason brawl with people that aren't on the team anymore, and it didn't affect, you know, like Roll 20 is the obvious sort of one, right? That Yoda's no longer on the team, and people like chat was very quick to sort of demonize Roll 20 of like, oh look, you kicked your MVP, like best player on the team you guys are kicking. So it kind of created like a little bit of, and it didn't show, you know, like he obviously is these players are professionals, but it could have gone the other way. You know what I mean? There could have been somebody who had an issue, wasn't on a team, and just was like, did the giant FU and threw or something.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I don't know what, like, who at Blizzard, I hope this guy got a stern talking to. I'm not going to say maybe this guy should have been fired, because I'm sure he probably was a part of the whole production of this tournament. The tournament was run really well. But whoever decided the whole roster change before the midseason brawl is just an absolute madman, right? He wanted just the most craziest, spiciest, drama-iest, that's not a word, drama-iest tournament he could have. You know what I mean? I feel like that's what he wanted. He was like, okay, we had this international tournament, and you know how you always make changes after an international tournament because you realize that my roster isn't very good international? Yeah. What if we did that before? What? That's right. What if you had to preemptively know that your roster wasn't good enough internationally, so you had to start making changes then? And you're like, what? How are they supposed to know that? They're not. So you're going to see just some crazy drama. We're going to get what everybody loves, Twitlongers. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if after midseason brawl, there's just like 50 Twitlongers from every region of all the people that got kicked or removed, or even some that didn't. You know, I'm sure Tempo Storm put one out that's like, we didn't make any changes, you know, and that's all it says, you know, but whatever.
Which they can't.
Blizzard's crazy.
And that's something that like is kind of like around, does Tempo make changes? Like, do they have to make changes? Like, at what point after how many international showings when you are ending up in about the same place? And even EU improved to the point where they came home with the win.
Yeah, I mean, as much as somebody like Bakery has, we said this before, I think that he says that, you know, teams that don't show up in international play should make roster changes because your goal should be, we want to win at international, right? We want to win some sort of mid-season brawl or BlizzCon, so that should be your only focus. Meaning that if you show up to one of these tournaments, you don't have success with it, then maybe it's time for you to make changes. But I mean, we saw this with Fnatic, though. People were complaining that Fnatic needs to get rid of their support player. You know what I mean? And that guy showed up against Dig. Like one of the main reasons why Fnatic did very well against Dig was because they kept their support player. And everyone was like, you need to get rid of this guy from like the Western Clash, right? They're saying this guy should be gone. You know, don't keep this guy because he's shown pretty poor performances in some of their HCC games, but he showed up here in this tournament, and it's like, you know, hopefully Tempo kind of has the same idea where it's like, maybe we saw some weak performances on some of our players, but you know, we're going to stick with it and keep working together. And truthfully, if you're Tempo Storm, what change can you make? You know, like
right.
What would you guys think their change would be?
It's you can't really like look at that team and be like, that person's the problem, you know, which is, it's not a terrible problem to have, right? But then because doing something to make a change, if you want to push yourself over that edge, it's almost easier to look at something and be like, this is the thing that we need to change, and that's not the case there. We'll see, you know, we have 6 months, like we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how NA play, the HGC group play, shakes out at the end. You know, who's going to be the number one team? It's now the top 3 teams that go to the international stage. That was one of the rule changes that happened. Is that so from the major regions, it's no longer just 1, 2, it'll be 1, 2, 3. So we'll see if they're number one, if they're in that top 3. Because you never know with all the roster changes. There's big things could happen the second half of this.
I agree.
What do you think was your favorite set of the whole finale weekend? Do you have a favorite one? I'll start with you.
Oh,
Put you on the spot.
The one that I guess I was the most invested in, I wouldn't really say like, you know, Heroes of the Storm. I watch a lot of games, so it's hard to say like which one really was like the most exciting. Like I guess in terms of that, like I think both Dig versus Fnatic sets, because they're two very close teams. They're two teams that scrimmed each other tons and tons of times in the past, that have faced each other all the time. They know each other's ins and outs. Like you saw all these preemptive, I'm picking this character because I know that this is something that you're really good at, and I'm going to deny that from you, and yada yada, and a lot of like, they know a lot about each other. So that's what made the games a lot more exciting. But when you look at like, I mean, for me personally, I think I was actually more invested in the like Tempo Storm versus Roll20 game. You know, that was something that I like stayed up for, and I really wanted to watch. So I wouldn't say that was my favorite set, though. I would definitely not say that. I would 100% not say that was my favorite set. That was like when your parents. I know this. I hope this never happens to any of your kids, but when your parents get you like a nice present in this amazing box, then you open it and then it's just empty. And they're like, "We got you your favorite thing, Aether." Disappointment, and then that was rough.
Okay.
I agree. Like I definitely was invested, but the finale games between the EU teams were so much fun to watch. Like the plays that happened, the back and forth. Like there were a couple moments there, like you didn't know whether the core was going to go down, and everyone always likes it when it's like that percentage and like everybody's rezzing and you know, boss calls, and like that last game that game 7.
Oh yeah.
When Fnatic like went on that last boss fight, like it was like your fingers are like digging into the desk. Oh my god, what's gonna happen? Like, are they gonna whiff it? Is it gonna get thrown here? Like, is Dig gonna come away with like another international win, or like is Fnatic finally gonna do it? So that was definitely a really fun game to watch.
Yeah.
Grizz, what about you? What were your highlights from MSV?
I mean, that whole last set was amazing. Those games were.
I think we're having some technical Grizz issues going on
Hello, Grizz. Grizz is in his den. He can't hear us. He's hibernating right now.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that a lot of these regions kind of look at what went wrong, and I think truthfully, just a lot of the meta shifting really, really favored EU. I mean, so many of these characters that the EU played previously got buffed, got better. You know, it almost, to me, it feels like that's just a little not fair. Blizzard seems like a little bit of favoritism. You know, I don't know. I mean, you just had like some stereotypical picks that were just scream EU picks, and then it's like, oh yeah, here they are getting picked all the time, and here they are being the meta picks, and here they are being something that either counters the meta picks or just has just a really important influence. And I think the thing that a lot of NA teams really need to focus on is the way that they handle their vision control. You know, we saw this a lot in any of their matches. Just if you go back and even in like the Roll20 matches and the Tempo Storm matches, you can even watch the KR vs EU matches. Just watch how each of these regions try to fight over the contested territory and try to fight over their vision, because a lot of these games you cannot make accurate shot calls if you don't have the proper vision control, right? And the truth is why Dignitas found such success in some of these games is because they accurately knew how to play off of an enemy team that wants to be aggressive in their vision control, right? If somebody wants to take vision and wants to take territory from you, you know, Dig always does it where they exchange the territory, they put damage on you, you kind of are walking in slowly, and they're slowing you down from taking too much territory, right? They're gonna make sure that you're being kept at a steady pace. And then once you're right where they want you to be in, and you'll see it in almost all their games, and even in the Fnatic games, and Fnatic, who's played them a lot, they know to expect this, right? They draw you in as close as they can, because they've given up a lot of this exchange of cooldowns between them, and then they get this moment where after their skirmish, they have this kind of breathing, this like calm before the storm, where they just go, all right, now that they're close enough and we can make use of our pick like Arthas, because that's kind of how Arthas works and how Stitches kind of works, is they have to kind of either rip territory from the opposing team, or they have to slowly give up territory, and then they do the whole, you know, Arthas theming, he's the death advance, right? He just puts on his E, walks at you, there's not much you can do about that, you know? And I think a lot of the YKR, again, didn't find success in doing the same kind of vision control as a lot of how they played was, we are going to take vision from you as fast as possible. We know where you want to go. We're going to jump walls. We're going to go around the side. We're going to hard flank. And truthfully, those characters couldn't find success because a lot of the EU characters are built in that kind of way where if you're going to try to hard engage on us, we're going to be able to punish you. So,
yeah. One thing from the chat, the last thing before we go into our next topic, and this one's for Grizz. Highlight is how Stitches got so meta halfway through the tournament, Mr. Skills says. And I know you were quite the Stitches fan.
Okay, am I back? Is
Yeah, you're
everything
back. You're good.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Stitches.
Welcome back.
Hey, thanks, man. I think Stitches, as far as dealing, like in that tournament specifically, I think it's just watching JPL play it. But what Stitches offers you is a really non-committal way to start a team fight. If Hook doesn't hit, then you can just disengage the fight. If Stitches gets into a fight, though, with the slam build, it was kind of due to the changes that he... it was kind of part of the changes that he got, I would say, a month ago, maybe longer. No one really played him. No one really kind of understood what this did for Stitches. They gave him more health. They made him more survivable. And then they gave him a build that, with this new survivability, he could actually take this full damage build. So you have a tank now that's putting out insane damage numbers. Once he gets to 16, he has a slow that's on a 4-second CD that's also doing an insane amount of damage. You can either take Bile or Gorge depending on the enemy team comp, which both of those ults, if you need to shut down a hyper carry, you can Gorge them. If you want to fight into perhaps a double tank lineup, you can take Bile and get behind them because you're at really no threat of dying, so you can slow the enemy team. You can let your damage dealers then get onto them, start doing damage, and not to mention his bite ability is healing you for a chunk of your health. So if you're in a battle with anyone, you can almost bait them into trying to kill you. You gain your health back, and then you have now put an enemy out of position. So all these things kind of mixed together. It wasn't one thing that put Stitches over the top. It was, I think, teams knowing how to play with him very well, and then all these kind of like little buffs over time that made him what he is.
Yeah, and kind of pigging back off that with the idea of kind of just how his early game plays out and some of his mid game plays out, right? Just like you kind of said this, like you don't even have to necessarily hit the hook, right? Like the threat of you having that hook is kind of most of the character, right? Like your mid game is basically just like, we have to respect the fact that this guy could just 100% win a team fight for us, right? Like if that guy hits that hook on one of our core characters, then we're going to lose that fight, 99% of the time, right? So just that threat alone allows him to kind of walk around, posture as much as he wants, allows him to take as much territory as he wants. And then towards the late game with the build you're talking about, the slam build, if someone tries to hard engage you because they don't want to let you have that hook, right? They're like, we can't let him get that hook and get that isolation from one of our targets. Then the slam build is just too good because you're trying to force an engage and he's just like, let me slow you down. Like, good luck trying to run past the Stitches who's just slamming 4 people on the enemy team and he's putting out tons of damage and he's just peeling for his backline and he's just gonna, whether he has Bile or Gorge, he's just gonna walk out,
And healing himself.
And healing himself the entire time, yeah.
The other thing, too, is at level 16, when you have that slow, it's actually like a hit confirm unless they have a blink or a vault or something. If a target doesn't have any type of mobility, like, for example, a Jaina, if you're to slam Jaina, that's a free hook. Like, that's an automatic kill, almost, like, unless it gets cleansed. But generally, you see those hooks more towards the end of the fight. You get a hook to engage it, then that forces the enemy team to either just accept that hero's death or try to save him. And that's actually when you get the best fights, is when you're pulling the enemy team in because they have to make the decision to try to save it. Because if you get a hook around an objective, that's why it's so good on Tomb, is because if you get a hook and get a kill, it's really a free turn in, because then they don't want to contest you. And that makes it even more dangerous, because when you're trying to turn in and the enemy team has a Stitches, or for example you're trying to defend against an enemy team turning in, they have a really good idea of where you are moving around and where you're trying to stall them. So it then becomes this this game of dodgeball pretty much with the hooks, and if you get hit by one, you're in for a bad time.
Well, I personally love watching Stitches play, so I like interesting heroes. I'm that person that likes odd duck heroes, and one of the other cool things that happened in the midseason brawl, it's our next topic actually, is we saw a lot of Medivh. And with those Medivh picks, we also saw some Medivh target bans specifically. And I kind of wanted to talk about the whole target ban concept a little bit. We saw the Medivh bans happen. We also saw Justing have a noob banned earlier in the group stages, right? There was like when they played Black the first time, they were like, we don't really want to deal with that Beetlebug again. So what did you guys think about that?
I think Glau really kind of hit the nail on the head with his explanation. When they asked him about target bans against him, he was thrilled, because then you open yourself up to these extremely meta picks. Normally you're not going to get these picks through a draft, and if you're getting target banned against, then you're guaranteeing yourself, especially at a first pick, you're guaranteeing yourself something that's probably better than the Medivh, but the team just doesn't really know how to effectively play against Medivh yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in this tournament specifically, right, because I talked about this before, we had these almost the same 5-6 picks in terms of like your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like your first pick, your second rotation, you know, those characters were all pretty similar. And I think the issue that Tempo Storm kind of ran into just against the Roll20, where they were target banning these Medivh picks and whatever, is that they were first banning it. And there are so many of these characters that developed your core. Like a lot of the meta and what you were playing with was these core characters that you could not, like, you weren't even just taking them so that they made you look good. You're taking them so that the enemy team didn't have that, right? And so if you're wasting a ban on, you know, Glaurung's Medivh, then you're almost ensuring that they get more of those core characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wondered too, like, are they gonna, in that second series between MVP Black and Roll20, I was like, is it gonna be a first ban Medivh? Like, are they gonna wait till the second ban phase? Like, can you wait till the second ban phase? Like, will Roll20 pick it up that early? Because like in NA play, they don't pick it up that early usually, right? They pick it up near the end if they play it.
Only really sometimes if they have something in their mind, right? Typically, if you're the second pick on a draft, you try to go in with a composition in mind. So typically on the second pick, you'll see him try to go for that Medivh in the 1-2, since he has to secure it there, or it will get banned out in the second rotation. So, I mean, MVP Black, I think, accurately made this change, whereas Tempo Storm kind of failed to highlight it, where you weren't banning the Medivh in first rotation. They want all these contested picks. You need to get rid of the contested picks, right? The ones of those core. And then second rotation, if you believe that their comp fills out with the Medivh very well, then you get rid of the Medivh, or you get rid of the Diablo. Because I mean, we saw in Infernal Shrines, right? They let them have the first pick, like the first rotation Medivh, and they got completely shut down because they highlighted what their comp was going to do too early on in the draft.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys ever target ban anybody in Hero League?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is it more like somebody plays like a really good meta hero, like, oh, so like a really good noob, or is it like so and so is like a super?
I mean, I think it really
like
it
Gazlo
kinda,
main.
Yeah. I mean, the Glogan bans, I definitely agree with, because it's not so much that you're too scared of like, oh man, this guy's gonna have like Gazlix. Like some of the one trick kind of target banning people you go for are ones that kind of have these off meta picks, and you're like, oh my god, like if this guy gets this pick, then my team's gonna have no way to deal with it, you know, because they just have no clue. They're not used to dealing with this character, and so and you know your guy's gonna pick it, right? So if he gets it, and then you're like, oh my god, here we go. Now my team actually has to keep watch of Glogan, or he's going to split push the entire time and just get his team like 2-3 level leads, and then we're going to lose like one team fight and lose the game. You know, I don't let that happen.
Do you think that it's like the most effective? I always think of them like of tricksy heroes. I'm like cheese, right? I don't like the word cheese because I don't think everything is cheese. I honestly value sort of like those high meta, high game IQ characters that take more than just like a mechanical skill play. They also take like a thought process to play. Do you think that those are like the most prevalent as far as target bans that are worth it? Like it's like a Medivh. Would you ban Medivh?
I mean, we saw it in like I'm sure you guys have played against Domavarian.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Some of the reasons why you do the target banning is because you somewhat believe that that character can't play anything else but that.
Yeah.
So you're better off. Like I remember when Light Knight played, and in some cases people going against Rich Hero now, they'll just ban the guy's one, what you believe to be his like one character to play, not trying to like BM anybody. Those are, you know, some good players there, right? But like, you know, if he doesn't have what he like only spams Hero League with, then he's probably not going to have as much success, right?
Yeah, that's more my target banning. If I think that by banning a hero it makes that player much worse, then I think that's the optimal way to kind of get a win. Because if you're giving them that hero, if that's all they play, it becomes less about like the hero itself and more that they only know really how to play that game on on that specific hero. They don't really know kind of macro game or the inner workings. It's more reliant on they know how to play the game at that hero specifically. So once you take them off that, they become a little lost. It almost feels like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a gold, so like it's a different beast, right? Down at that, the MMR.
Do you run into people? I mean, I feel like if I'm in that range, I would just ban Nova, and I wouldn't even ban it because I don't want to deal with Nova. It's because I don't want someone on my team to pick Nova.
You know, I've maybe said this before, but the biggest thing that you see at that elo is Lava Wave Ragnar.
Ban Rag.
Nice.
9 out of 10 times. It's always Lava Wave. Never, ever, ever.
It's sad that that's what it feels like, right? So you're like, I should ban from my teammates having stuff that I know they're gonna throw the game with instead of getting rid of stuff from my enemy team.
Yeah, it's like Genji's really good. Genji is not good at gold. So like that one's out of there.
Get him out, yeah.
Nova's almost better because those people like only play Nova, so like at least they're good. It's that concept, right? They only know how to play Nova, so you should just let them have Nova if they're on your team.
It is a whole nother world down there, isn't it?
Well, and yeah, so I guess that's sort of like my thing is that all the time I get into games and they're like, ban KT, that guy plays KT. And I'm like, I don't really want to ban KT. Like, you can play around that. Like, don't stand in queue. Like, that's easier. Or kill him because they all take convection. They all take convection also. So it's like, just kill the KT and then it's fine.
No,
but,
if someone on your team calls for it, you have to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's twofold, right? If someone on your team calls for a ban, 90% of the time you should just do it because that guy is going to be so upset coming into the game.
Yeah,
like he's going to be like, "Why did you ban Mouth?" And you're like, "Oh my god, dude, I don't even want to listen to you right now." But
100%. Someone's like, "Ban this hero." I'm like, "You got it, Chief."
Yeah,
you got it, man.
Yeah. We're buds. Me and you, we're buds
hey,
now.
Man.
I'm liking what you're throwing down here.
Yeah,
man.
You're intelligent. Let's win this game.
Exactly.
That's every game. I never ban what I want to ban. I'm just like, you got it, man.
Ask your team, whatever they want, you know.
And then target banning your own team. You're like, oh god, he's hovering that. That's not gonna work.
Get that
later,
out.
Zagara. You're playing something else. That's a double-edged sword though, because that one might get that guy inting down mid lane.
Oh yeah.
Right, or he one-trick Zagara, right? One-trick Zagara.
It's you're treading on thin ice there, but sometimes you got to do it.
Hey, that's Hero League, right?
Yeah.
All of Hero League is that fine line, thin ice, walking that tightrope, whatever, you know, other metaphors, analogies you want to make.
Do I talk? Do I rage?
All silence. Silence only.
Mute everybody as soon as you get in. I've done that.
Turn off ally chat. Much easier.
I read a thread on Reddit that a guy said that was his tactic. He just muted everybody as soon as he got in, and it made him a better player.
How to get from silver 5 to silver 4. Turn off ally chat. Okay, before we step into too much, you know, I don't want to harass too many people that maybe are going through these things, or you one tricks out there. You know, we deep down we love you guys. You know, you guys make the game interesting. That's about it. That's about it. You make it interesting. There you go.
I don't know.
So I think we have
got the amateur roundup.
Right? Yeah, we got an announcement to make, right?
Yeah, so we amateur roundup this week. We have Bloodlust starts basically in 9 minutes, so that's happening. It's week 4 of Bloodlust, so it's the last week play of Bloodlust. Next week is like the playoffs, and then there's like the playoff plus, which is like has the pro teams. But I think it's too late to sign up for that. So if you're watching and you wanted to, sorry, too late.
Sorry.
There is a few teams. Buttered Toast is playing again, I believe.
Yes,
Mhm.
ma'am.
They have won a few weeks now. So do you think they're going to continue on that trend?
I mean, they're definitely looking to be the strongest group out there. I mean, I think for what's a bigger deal though is that for the first time in a while, we're finally seeing imported support coming back and playing in, and they were, the number 2 amateurs team from the last HGC Open. So maybe we'll have some contention there. Maybe that'll be the grand final. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, that's true.
It looks like Buttered Toast is going to be playing with Yush today as well.
Seems like they haven't really
Set.
solidified what they want their roster to be.
Correct.
But
And the imported roster is a little bit different too.
I believe so. Yes, I believe that their main tank Crux is out, and if I'm not mistaken, then it should be Draded has come in to play, and I think he might actually be their tank. Not too sure.
Yep.
A lot of interesting.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, even with those 2 teams being there, you still can't count out teams like Four Guys and like Firm Handshake and Flame is Lame and my personal favorite Scorpion Raccoon. I think they're in this one again. Those are true. They are heroes, hype, originals with amazing logos. So if they sold jerseys, I'd probably buy them if it had that same picture on it.
Scorpion Raccoon, yeah, and a cool
definitely.
name. You really can't go wrong with the name.
It's like the one thing you don't want to run into in a dark alley, right? Like a Scorpion Raccoon.
I have one as a pet.
That's frightening.
Yeah.
You're a man, Grizz. That's fine. So that's tonight. And then we have Tempo Series 2 starts on Wednesday, so that's tomorrow, the 21st. So make sure that you guys sign up for that. It's the first of the 5 weeks, and you get your points for that to get to the grand tournament finale where you can win cash.
Cash is good.
Cash is good.
Cash is good.
And remember,
Cash
for
money.
all of you listeners out there, that you can help contribute to that prize pool for the Tempo series. If you go to Matcherino, you can find it, enter the code HHTempo2, and that'll give you a free $1, and you can contribute that to the prize pool. So help out the amateur scene. The amateur scene is really important. It really affects so many things. Part of what I believe is that a strong amateur team scene helps the pro scene, because we got to get those teams in there and those players there to make NA great again, or great ever, one of the two.
Whoa.
Us 3 here, we don't believe in no trickle down economics, right? We believe in empowering the bottom core and raising them up and making them stronger, because then that will really light a fire under those top 8 teams, because they got to be worried about us, the collective below them. You know what I mean?
It worked for EU.
They can't be worrying about each other when they got to worry about what's behind them.
Get in the lead.
It worked for EU. The bottom 2 teams were knocked out by both AM teams.
That is true.
Except
That
both those
definitely
AM
is true.
teams were kind of groups of pros.
X top 8 teams. Yeah.
Well, we have that now. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. Buttered Toast is a very pro-looking team, so
Yeah, they'll probably.
But I
Definitely.
mean, in EU, you had players like BKB, who is like considered to be one
God.
of the best tanks to play
God.
the game. So when you have players like that too, I mean, they even came in interview afterwards. They're like, yeah, we didn't practice the week leading up to. It's like, what? They're like, yeah, we played in 2 opens, didn't practice coming into, and then we 3-0'd.
Easy 25K. Easy money.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Money. All right, well, anything else, Ether?
No.
No?
I don't know.
Grizz? Last
For amateur
thoughts?
roundup, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that about covers it for now. Kind of in a bit
Actually,
of a lull.
Actually, speaking of
Ooh.
people like BKB, I actually kind of want to talk about the state of tank play in North America. And I actually, at least me personally, the way I see these amateur teams play out is the one that's really going to make HGC is the one that has the best tank. Like right now, we don't see, like outside of even the top 3 teams, we don't really see amazing or good tank play, right? We don't see teams that like Roll 20 has their workaround with Larong. He kind of plays their vision and a lot of their vision control. But the truth is that all the lower end amateur teams really need to if they want to contest with the big dogs, with the top HCC teams, they're gonna have to have a tank that really shows up and actually plays for Vision a lot better. Because if they don't have that, they're just gonna get rolled over. So like, no matter what team you form together here, like if you have HCC people or whatever, if you don't have that solid tank backing you, and you don't have that guy who's like, you know, your engager, your vision controller, like tank, I think is one of the toughest roles to play, right? So if you don't have that guy and he's not like a solid player, then you might not find the best success, even if you have all these really good players backing him, you know?
Front line, I agree. The most important team, I think.
Mhm.
If you have a bad tank, you're shit out of luck.
Oh yeah. And in North America, it's looking a little dry in the tank role, so Grizz gotta step it up.
Yeah, Grizz. Grizz for SCL.
Feels bad.
Well, I think that is going to do it for this week. Grizz playing a tournament. You can find us here every week on Heroes Hype Twitch at 4 Pacific. You can also find the replays for this on our Heroes Hype YouTube and get more information on the Heroes Hype website. It's heroeshype.com. Ether, where can our viewers find you?
In the Nexus.
Not again.
Bang.
Got
You guys can find me at Twitter at Landon D. Baker, since I don't make accounts with my own username in them because I think that's weird. But
Okay.
yeah, pretty much just Twitter. I actually do have a YouTube channel, but I don't want to share it because it has the most cringiest, terrible
Mhm.
videos I think I've ever seen, and I personally made them, which is just even more
Same.
disgusting.
Yeah, we'll have those for you next week. I'll find it.
No.
I'll do some
We'll find them.
internet digging.
For our outro next week.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll have
God,
some
they're so
outro
bad.
videos.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll find them, guys. I got you. I'll do some hunting,
Please don't.
and then those
we're gonna-
videos will be in the Nexus.
Where can you guys be found?
Well, you can find me at Grizz_GG at both Twitter and Twitch. Pretty straightforward. Some of us do use our handles for some things. Nice BM.
It's weird.
You're a handle?
Yeah, you are a handle.
Oh, wait.
All right, relax. we're still on live on stream right now. You guys can save that for later. All right.
You can find me on Twitter at maybe, and you can also not find me in the Nexus.
None of us actually play this game.
Yeah.
What
6.5.
what is odds? I don't. Yeah.
Heroes of the Where?
They found me wandering around.
Hey man, you want to be on podcast?
I was like, yeah, dude, podcasts are tight.
I'm looking for guys with beards. Handle them?
Oh.
Mm.
You came to the right place.
We got beards aplenty.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we see you next week.
Have a good night. Pistol fingers.